Hello and welcome. This audio will be a journal audio, and perhaps I don't need to say that as often because I'd imagine in my title I will label it as journal audio. And again, the purpose of the journal audio is partly for you to maybe connect in some way to what I'm doing in my life, just as if you've come across the many YouTube vlogs that are there where people choose to share parts of their life. And the other part of the journal audio is to perhaps take some lessons that I feel we can all relate to and all perhaps put into practice in our own lives as well. And I guess a third reason for the journals is they certainly help myself in my understanding and learning, and perhaps there is some therapeutic benefits of sharing or talking about how my days and how my week has gone. At the moment it seems like I'm doing this weekly, and that's not intentional. It's just simply when I have time to sit down and record. So perhaps these journals will be weekly or every several days perhaps. And maybe the content of my days will dictate that. If there are some days where I do many things or have lots to share and to learn from, then perhaps the journals may increase, and vice versa. You may have some journals where it's every week or so. But again, I'm trying to be free from having a schedule from that sort of thing. So we will see how each journal goes as it comes to me. And the last couple of journals I've been sharing about going to the beach, and surprisingly this last Saturday we went to another beach, but it was very similar to before in regards to the content, so I shan't go into it in detail. But one thing I will mention when going to this beach was that when we arrived there, the tide was out, so there was just simply lots of wet sand, and I believe that the water was too far out for us to go to. I think there was some mud there as well, so that perhaps would have made it a bit dangerous. But I remember simply allowing that, simply stepping into the present moment that the water was not there, and that's how it was. It would have been nice if the water was there, the tide was in, so we could play in the water or walk in the water, but that wasn't to be, and I didn't feel any negative effects from that. And that was just simply connecting with what is. When you are not connected to what is, the mind will complain. The mind will construct scenarios of how this could be avoided. and that you should have avoided it. For example, the mind could have said, well, you should have checked the tide times before you left. Why didn't you check the tide times? Or it could have blamed somebody else, because the mind loves to blame other people. The mind could have said to my father, why didn't you check the tide times before we came here? Surely that would have seemed logical, going to a new place. So the mind can come up with all sorts of things to complain about, to try and understand. But it is very simple. The tide was out, and that's how it was. And of course, there's nothing wrong with learning. I certainly made a mental note to check the times for the tide next time we go. And I also communicated that to my dad as well, but I didn't make it into a story that was repeated over and over in my head or repeated to other people. As something as simple as that can be repeated many times. I could have gone home and told a friend, yes, we went to this beach, but the tide was out, and then I would complain about that, and I would evoke those unhealthy emotions and maybe some pain. And often this is done unconsciously. We are not aware of the stories we tell. We are not aware of the emotions we evoke inside of our body. So while being in the present moment, there are many benefits that are a result of just being in the present moment. Essentially, it doesn't really need to be deconstructed, a list of all the benefits of being present, or that's simply just a mind, again, trying to measure or understand what it can never understand. The rest of the week that has passed before the Saturday, I have been searching for jobs, so that has been challenging at times as well, as I'm sure we've all been there, searching for a job and filling out the long application forms that ask for all of your history and so on. And so I am currently doing that, and it surprisingly takes up a lot of time when filling out a form or when writing a description of why you want this job or why you feel you would be suitable for it as well, which is often asked in the application forms, and all of that can take some time. And the challenge of that is my mind wants a job already, or my mind is fearful of not getting a job and the consequences of that. It creates a story of not getting a job and what would happen. So perhaps I'm grateful for this challenge, because challenges allow us to step into being, because I'd much rather be in being than with the thoughts of the mind about jobs. So I find some challenges can be useful to remind you of awareness, of a space of peace that's always there. So And my week has been fairly quiet. I have been helping with domestic duties in the house, such as cleaning and so on. And I've mentioned this several times, and I haven't forgotten to do a audio about my story so far. Often when I sit down to record, this idea comes to my mind, but I feel that may be a slightly longer audio, so often I don't feel like I have enough time to record that, and I'd rather do it in one sitting than do it in separate recordings. But hopefully soon I will upload the story so far for me and how I got into the practice of being present. I just want to interrupt my journal by just simply giving a reminder of presence right now. Are you being present as you listen? Or is your mind interpreting, making judgments about what you are hearing? Right now I'm fully aware of my body and the sensation of sitting in this chair. And I'm using that as an anchor to presence as I talk, because often as we talk, we have to engage in the mind and thoughts, and the process of speaking comes from thoughts. So I am keeping some of my attention on presence as well with my body. One thing I found very testing this week was when I visited my dad. They went out shopping, leaving me with just my younger brother, who is 8 years old, and as you can imagine, has lots of energy, never stops talking. And during the time I was alone with him, I was feeling very physically tired. I had been doing some cleaning that morning, and I wasn't in the mood to interact with him or play with him. But so that was a little bit of a challenge as well, and at times I did have to be stern when talking to him. And even ignore him at times when I've told him something once. So I try to use various strategies to cope in that situation. But not once did I become very angry or very irritated, or I didn't complain much in my mind of, for example, why does he have to ask so many questions all the time? That did come once, but I let that go. But again, in that situation, I simply took action. I realized I wasn't able to cope with all the questioning and the interaction, so I asked him to play on his tablet for a little while I did some writing, and I want to quickly mention that my older brother, who I don't think I have mentioned, I have an older brother who's a few years older than me. He recently returned from a 10-day silent meditation that is called Vipassana. So I believe within that structure they have their own techniques of meditating and being present. And so when I see him next, and I'm sure he's going to tell me all about it, I will certainly share that with you as well, because I would like to say that this week it feels as if I haven't been very present. It feels that I've been more aware of the idea of being present, but I haven't, what hasn't felt like I have been as present as I have been in other weeks. And I think that is something to certainly talk about, where sometimes the mind is portraying the idea of being present, but you are not truly present in that moment. And it's a very, very fine line between being present and being in your mind, but having the idea of being present. It can be a bit difficult to break down and talk about, but perhaps some of that is where maybe I wasn't completely in presence, that I was perhaps in my mind, but there was some presence there as well, but perhaps not as much presence as the weeks before. Maybe that is a better way of looking at it. One thing I would like to incorporate during this week is to take out time specifically to be present. So you can call that a meditation or just simply being, but that is the intention I will have for this week, to each day to sit and simply be. And I think I will mix it up, as well as simply sitting and being. Perhaps I will also listen to some music while being present there. Perhaps some chakra music or some other meditation music. Maybe I could in some days do some mantras in the morning as part of my time for being present, and I will set the intention for being present for at least 5 minutes. I think that would be a good start, and maybe that will extend on its own to longer times during some days, but at least 5 minutes. And maybe in this moment you could set some intentions, some plans, some goals even. Again, goals are not a negative thing, but as long as you are aware that life moves through you, that you are life. So if you are rooted in that, then of course goals can be set. I prefer to see it as directions can be set, and even with the intention I have mentioned about sitting down for 5 minutes, that I am not attached to that intention, that goal or action happens each day, then so be it. Or if it comes to a day where it doesn't happen, then I won't be disappointed, or I won't create a story out of it. It will simply be that today it didn't happen. And I invite you to perhaps try that with any intentions you plan to set over the coming days or this week as well. And again, feel free to share your intentions, as I hope at some point soon there will be much interaction in the comments where we are helping each other. I guess similar to if you were to go to a retreat, a meditation retreat, to have that sort of vibe where we are all on this path together. Okay, so I'm going to end this audio now as a motorbike drives past. And I wish you well, and I will see you very soon.